and sleeping on the job. The reason prudent management of public debt is our main focus is because it constitutes nearly half of our annual budget. This financial year 2024-2025, Treasury Operations Debt Service is allocated. This is just a highlight. I am not going page by page. I am just introducing the document itself. This financial year, our total budget for debt servicing is 35 trillion, which is 48% of the originally approved budget of the 72.130 trillion. Of course, you need to take a note, which you may have done already, that the budget has increased now to 77.4 trillion because of the 3 supplementary budget approvals. So next financial year, which you are handling, debt service and vote 130 treasury operations, has so far been allocated 27.378 trillion, representing 38% of our annual total budget. I've used the word so far, knowing NRM's installment way of budgeting. The Public Finance Management Act says budget should be a process of sound macroeconomic forecasts, but the NRM thinks otherwise. Mr. Chairman, honorable members, we ask you to concern yourselves with the actual cost of borrowing, which in our view is interest payment and other fees. This financial year, 2024-2025, we are set to pay 9.6 trillion in interest on our debt if they don't return with the 4th supplementary schedule. Next financial year, 11.1 trillion has been budgeted for interest payment. This is more than 30% of our total revenue collection as a country, which is against the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. Again, on the public debt, we invite you members to flash a torch on commitment fees. We have budgeted this next financial year 63 so far billion for commitment fees. Last financial year, the initial budget for commitment fees was 45 billion, but it later grew to about 73 billion. Our politicians and technocrats are processing loans that are not yet ready, to utilize, which is the reason we are paying these high fees. The reason is advanced is that we contract before feasibility studies are done. We don't have counter funding. Those reasons are in our, if you look at from page 6, page 6 to 8. Page 6 gives you a table here to look at the commitment fees we've paid in the last about 6 years, totaling to about 469 billion shilling. We go and apply for loans, they are processed, we don't pick them. And then page 8, we picked some of the projects for which we borrowed money and we are not utilizing, and the corresponding commitment fees. So our argument is that the leaders who are in finance and technocrats will need to stop this. Really, in 6 years, you have wasted 469 billion in commitment fees. And look at the projects, Kampala-Jinja Expressway. All of you using that road know the amount of traffic jam. There is a study done by civil society organizations that came to the conclusion Uganda loses about 2 trillion shilling in traffic jam every year. If you count a study by civil society, I can share a copy after, that Uganda as a country is using 2 trillion shilling annually because of traffic jam in Kampala and Kampala metropolitan, the hours lost.
What we lose?
What we lose as a country.
Yes.
Because we are unable to do roads and we've borrowed money and we're not utilizing it. And the reason finance advances is visibility studies, money for counterfunding, etc. So, Mr. Chairman, as opposition, our focus, which you will find in this policy statement, is also money we lose through corruption. The report of the IGG, which I guess a copy you may have, categorized corruption, public, and then private. The amount of money the IGG estimates that we lose as a result of implementing the budget comes to about 4 trillion. Money we lose in procurement, money we lose in bribes, and so on and so forth. People usually make a mistake of saying we lose 9 trillion. The 9 trillion is the aggregate, is the amount of money we lose in the corruption business, including money that the private or the public pays to different government officials for services. But the budget, the public budget, the IGG estimates that every year we lose about 4 trillion shilling. That's why our focus is, if we can plug the loopholes in the budget, automatically you may reduce on the amount of money that you are borrowing to provide services. And then finally, Mr. Chairman, as I said, I will not take long because this is a short 23-page document which I invite your committee, Mr. Chairman, to read. The amount of time we take to complete projects in Uganda vis-a-vis neighbors and what is internationally accepted. Projects of 4 years are taking 8, 10, and huge amount of money is lost. The most disappointing thing is that these contractors will penalize us if we delay either to pay them, but for them they can delay projects. There are roads that are under construction for forever. I don't have to mention them. So we are also losing a lot of money in projects that are not completed on time. We invite you to look at that as well. And finally, Mr. Chairman, as I said, my highlight will be on vote 130. The rest is in the document. We are also concerned with the public investment in different private ventures. The Kwewoola, Atiak, and Tungamo Coffee, money we've put in Sudiri Pereria's businesses, Magora, etc. Sometimes money is budgeted for as debt servicing and then it is diverted to pay debts. So Uganda is an interesting country that you cannot pay your debt, but you can go to pay Magora's debt. If you remember, the money given to Magora was picked from vote 130, which in our view we think it needs to be managed better than it is. So Mr. Chairman, I don't want to take a lot of time. My understanding of this invitation was for me to formally present this statement, which is 23, not very difficult to read. And I want to thank you for the opportunity on behalf of my colleagues in the opposition.
Thank you, Honorable Ssemujju. Indeed, we would like to appreciate, as you're aware, that for us as Parliament, we are the People's Parliament, and we're interested in hearing all these views. And as you are aware, the reason we invited you to this committee is purposely to hear your alternative statement. And I can assure you it will go a long way to add value to our report of the MPS. And particularly when you emphasize vote 130, Treasury operations. Yes, we also are concerned when you talk about these projects where we borrow money and we have not started. It is an expense on government, of course. We would advise, as it were, that even before we borrow, we should be ready to start the project so that we can maximize on the borrowed money. I'd like to open the discussion to colleagues to make comments or any clarifications by the presentation made by our colleague.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, and I would like to thank the presenter. One side is our colleague here for a very comprehensive presentation. Now, the matters before us, this is economics, and certainly there is no economics that is specific for the opposition and for the people in government. Economics remains economics, and the information that is certainly provided is very useful, and there are very fundamental issues that you have raised that we need really to look critically as the patriotic citizens of this country, issues of managing the borrowed funds. And I think this is a matter that has been around within our committee, and I will certainly continue to engage. But of course, also there are areas that, because economics itself being a social science, it depends on which way you stand. And sometimes like you can see the presentation goes a little overboard. Now that we have not had really to face it from page by page, we may not give it a thorough analysis, but I really wish to appreciate the presentation, Chair and Honorable Ssemujju. Thank you so much for always really giving it your best. Every time you really do some good research. But I think, members, this is very useful information for us, and we'll look at it and we'll give justice, because we want to come up with a pro-Ugandans budget. And we thank you.
Yes, Honorable Marks.
Yeah, Chair, thank you, and I want to thank the presenter. I really appreciate the manner in which the policy was anchored, particularly on corruption. That's really a development challenge in the country, and we really need to address it head on. It's not enough just to have institutions established to fight corruption, but also there's a need to enforce the institutional and legal frameworks. That said, I would like to make a comment on debt. I would wish to say that we should actually not worry much about the volume of the stock of debt, because debt management is a tool for managing the macroeconomy. And we all desire, as a prerequisite, that we ensure continued stability of the economy. And so whatever the costs are associated with the servicing and repayment of the debts, those are already factored in. No wonder our debt sustainability analysis shows that actually there should be no worry at all. Particularly when you take the debt to GDP in present value terms, when you discount the interest, we are actually very, very comfortable. And so debt should actually not be a worry to us. Let us treat it as a tool for managing the macro fiscal framework. I thank you.
Thank you, colleagues, for your comments.
Chair, not kind of seem to contradict my brother, because like just as I said, depending on where you come from, we should actually be concerned about the debt stock, because particularly looking at the analysis, what does this stock comprise of? Because if you are going to use just a measure of debt to GDP, we are comfortable, we are actually not threatened. But looking at, because this debt eventually is targeted to a particular purpose. And if money is not drawn down and it is used appropriately, the issue of corruption, which you have mentioned, corruption is feeding on the money that is borrowed. And that's why we also need to get worried. And, but in terms of the debt sustainability, looking at our ability to pay and the stock itself, yes, from the surface you can say all is well, but we need to get deeper.
Thank you, and I think I agree with both of you, but in a perspective that Honorable Kugonza has clarified. Whereas it is true that in terms of debt to GDP, we are not badly off, even when you compare with our neighbors as a country. But it is a concern as leaders that we must pay interest to details and how this date that we acquire is being used. And I think that is the gist of the matter. The issue of corruption is still a concern of the country. It is for all of us to fight. And therefore, I would like to appreciate Honorable Ssemujju for all this information you brought to us. We are going to collaborate it with what we have and align and give our opinion